just mentioning today, looking at the newspaper, of President Obama getting onto Air Force One. Take a look at the Irish Times today. It's an amazing picture. One little man compared to this huge big plane. Do they need that? Imagine we give out about our little plane that the government has, but look at the size of that yoke. Anyway, let's talk to Sean Hillen. He's the National Public Relations Director of Democrats Abroad. Hello, Sean.
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
I'm probably asking the wrong man here. I'm looking at the Irish Times here, and I'm looking at President Obama getting onto that Air Force One. Look at the size of that yoke. It's huge.
I haven't seen that photograph, Sean, but also, if I remember well, doesn't our own fine Taoiseach get a bigger salary than President Obama?
Oh, well, that's all right then. Okay, I'll let you off.
So it evens up a little bit.
That never comes into the equation, you see. They never mention all these trimmings they get, these big planes and big White House and things. But anyway, Sean, what's the mood like at the moment? I mean, obviously we've had this dreadful storm, and we've been talking about the local reality of that today with the grandchildren and in fact, children of a Donegal man who've been killed, the little children that were swept away. They had a Donegal father. So that storm has caused such horror and such problems and delayed the campaigning, I know, quite understandably. What's happening now?
Well, with regard to the election, it probably, and it was, I listened to the story, and it's a very tragic story about those children. My thoughts go with them. On the political front, I think the arrival of Hurricane Sandy was no doubt a benefit for President Obama because it gives him the opportunity to come across as a leader of the nation and as presidential. And not only that, but surprise, surprise, the New Jersey governor, Chris Christie, who's a Republican, praised him very much for what he did. And then a day or two later, the New York mayor, Michael Bloomberg, who was a Republican and became an independent, but hasn't sided with either Republicans or Democrats until now, gives his vocal support also to President Obama, and others such as Colin Powell, who was, of course, a very well-known Republican during the Iraq War, also gives his support to President Obama. So Hurricane Sandy, no doubt, was a benefit to the president.
Which is kind of second away, isn't it, unfortunately, but that's the reality.
Exactly, unfortunately, but politics is politics, and I don't think really, looking at the television visuals and reading the newspapers, that it was an overt making of political hay in the tragedy. I do think both candidates were deeply concerned about what was happening.
Now, it was very, very close, we're being told, but it's getting to be more a favourable race for the president, it would seem.
Yes, I was just looking this morning at some of the polls, Sean, and CNN gave it as a 49% dead heat. The Pew Journalism Centre gave it as 50 to 47 for Obama. ABC gave it as 49 to 48 in favour of Obama. That is extremely close. And we're talking about not, of course, the popular vote. We're talking about electoral college votes, which is something a little different, but still it's extremely close, and it comes down in the end perhaps to 5 key swing states, and that's Ohio, Florida, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Obama's winning Ohio by about 2.3%. He's winning Wisconsin by about 5% and Iowa by about 2%, but Romney at the moment has Florida by about 1% and Virginia by 0.5%. But there are other states such as Colorado, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, which are also very close.
But it's a very, very different story to the last presidential campaign, isn't it, for President Obama? I mean, he's nowhere near it in terms of his popularity in some of the states.
Exactly, Sean, and the reason for that, of course, is that he was brought in on an unreal wave of expected change which is impossible in any political system, and certainly in the one in the United States, which doesn't move that fast, and you can't simply pass through legislation at the drop of a hat. And of course, as we know, he inherited the worst economic situation since Franklin D. Roosevelt, and that takes a long time to fix. And then, of course, he faced a kind of a double obstacle insofar as 2 years into his presidency, the Republicans won Congress with their legislative body. So every move, every advance he has attempted has been blocked by Congress, which has a Republican majority, including Obamacare, the healthcare system that he introduced, which he finally pushed through, but not a single Republican voted for Obamacare, even though Mitt Romney, for example, had introduced quite similar healthcare system in Massachusetts when he was governor.
Sean, the difference is you can vote, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Whereas we can't vote if we're away. You can vote. That's the difference with the American system. How much of a difference does that make, by the way? I mean, in terms of immigrants?
Well, I think we all know, of course, what happened when Gore fought Bush some years ago with the infamous butterfly Chad votes down in Florida. And in the end, it came down to literally a handful of votes. So in Ireland, for example, North and South, there are several thousand people with American voting rights. And if you bring in UK or all of Europe, you're talking about, obviously, tens of thousands of votes. So in some states, we will find come Tuesday that the difference in victory and loss will be very narrow. And some of these overseas votes are definitely going to count in some states.
And what are the big differences between, I know you're a Democrat, but what are seen as the big differences between these two guys? Try and be balanced.
Well, Romney grew up in an affluent Detroit neighborhood. His father was president of the fourth largest car company in America. He went to an exclusive private school. He joined being private equity, in which he was making investors richer through buying of companies and stripping down of companies and selling off the assets. And in contrast, President Obama's background was biracial, Indonesian father, Kansas mother, sent to Hawaii at the age of 10 to live with his grandparents, worked in community building in Chicago, went to Harvard and became president of the Harvard Law Review, came back to Chicago and worked, of course, in local politics, building himself up to the White House. So their differences in background, at least, are extremely contrasting. And in terms of support, that would also be the case. Big business, naturally, would be Republican. It would be behind Romney's campaign. And that would be oil companies, huge manufacturing plants. Whereas Obama's support would tend to be, not that he doesn't have big supporters, but would tend to be individual donations. And they've ran a quite successful campaign in that regard.
I heard a figure yesterday, and I thought it sounded immoral to me. $1 billion spent on trying to get people to vote for these candidates. $1 billion.
It might even be more than that, Sean. I just read in the New York Times this morning that this 18-month-long campaign has cost $2 billion, about €1.5 billion. So you were asking me at the beginning of our conversation what the mood was like. I think after 18 months of a campaign, they're probably exhausted and weary and ready for it all to be over. But yet, as you read and as the television news this morning showed, the two candidates are flitting between these key states, and they will do right down to the last hour.
Okay.
But it costs a lot of money.
Okay, well, Sean, by the way, if you're wondering why we chat to him today, he's from Donegal, living in Donegal, but he is the National Public Relations Director of Democrats Abroad. And Sean, where do you stand on that one? Are you proud to be an American or an Irishman?
Oh, that's a tricky question, Sean. I think I vote in the elections because it's not just a domestic election, insofar as the United States is still the most powerful nation on earth, and its influence goes far beyond the borders of the United States. Its effects are felt here in Ireland with the assistance that we have received from various funds based in the United States. It has effects in Ireland because many Irish people have and are and will immigrate to the United States. So I'm voting because I would like the leaders of the planet to be Obama-like in their views on social justice and equality and equal opportunity for all.
Okay. A proud American or proud Irishman, which? Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, proud to be born in Ireland, but having seen the level of corruption throughout Ireland, I have to admit I'm quite disappointed. I'm quite disappointed that Irish people have not shown the reputation that they are known for globally in protesting more overtly what has happened over the last 5 to 10 years.
So does that make you
disappoints me, Elliot.
Does that make you a proud American at the moment then?
I would say a proud American and a patriotic Irishman.
All right, compromise. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Linda. Thank you both for joining us. 11:45 the time. Back after the break.